Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the 143. We are here with you live. Nick is not here with me exactly, but
Away.
he's here.
Out of the office this week, but obviously that does not stop the content from rolling in. The show must go on.
The show must go on.
So we're here with another episode as expected.
As we always are, this is episode 92, I believe, and we're just rolling through these weeks. Week 6 of the NFL season, so I just want to make sure I got that number right. A lot of action, a lot of interesting things happened this week. It was not a boring week. It did not disappoint. Some great things happened, actually, let me say. And we're going to dive into that here in a second. Get you started with the stat of the week, brought to you by our wonderful sponsor, Andrews Logistics. Nick, this is actually an interesting stat for you. Okay, this is not like a normal stat I normally give. I saw this, so I had to bring it up. The New York Giants lost in Buffalo Sunday Night Football. It was actually kind of a boring game. It was like 14-9, I think, and they lost. It was heartbreaking. They were on the one for the Giants. It was heartbreaking for the Giants. They were on the one, threw the ball in the end zone, didn't get the touchdown at the last second. Anyways, that night marks the first time that the New York Giants have lost in the state of New York in the last 30 years, which is a crazy stat because they are the New York Giants, right? So you're like, oh, they're undefeated. But then you realize they play in New Jersey. So that's basically the only team that plays in New York. It's not even the Jets. It is, in fact, the Bills. So the last time the Bills beat the Giants in the state of New York was 30 years ago, but that also means that it was the last time that they lost in New York was 30 years ago. So pretty crazy stat just because their name is the New York Giants. We're not really sure why because they're in New Jersey. So are the Jets, but a little doozy there for you. Little mind.
That's an interesting one. Obviously, we weren't there for when they named these teams, so we have no say. But Your player of the week, he's been outstanding every single week of the year. This has been one of the most powerful, I think the most powerful offenses we've seen all season, and it is Tyreek Hill from the Miami Dolphins, where they slaughtered the Panthers 42-21. It was a slow start to that game, but the Dolphins did what they normally do, and he caught 6 passes for 163 yards and a touchdown. He was absolutely lethal, just doing what he normally does. I mean, that's what's expected of him because he's been so versatile for this offense. We're seeing Tua thrive this year. He's really come alive. We've seen Devon A-Chain. He's our A&M boy.
Sir.
Flying out of the gate. Obviously, unfortunately, he got injured, but
he'll be back.
It does not seem to be slowing the Dolphins down.
Nope. Great performance from Tyreek. He's actually on pace for 2,300 yards this season. So pretty crazy stuff from Tyreek Hill. Could be a record-breaking year for him. Let's dive into it. We're only going to talk about the important games this week. There was a lot.
I think the first two things that people want to know about is the juggernauts, if you will, falling. Right? We saw 2 teams lose this week that were pretty notable. That would be the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. Those were 2 huge games that I think were pretty big upsets.
Yes.
Especially
they were huge upsets.
Especially the 49ers, even though they were playing in Cleveland, and Cleveland was supposed to have a good defense, but their offense, the 49ers offense, just they were not clicking. Brock Purdy was not looking like his normal self. Unfortunately, you saw Christian McCaffrey and Debo, they both left with an injury, so that kind of played a factor in. But we're so happy that the Eagles and the 49ers lost this week. You know, it just brings them down to planet Earth.
Talk about the 49ers first. Cleveland's got the number 1 ranked defense right now in the league. Jim Schwartz is, and that defense is handling people. I mean, PJ Walker was the quarterback. The offense was nothing special this week for the Browns, but they got the win with the defense. And Brock Purdy didn't look amazing, but I will say in the end, he drove his team down to give them an opportunity to kick a 41-yard field goal that the field goal kicker missed. So I don't think that this loss was really on Brock Purdy. I think the loss was on the kicker. I mean, a 41-yard field goal is when you got to make. That's not a hard field goal. That's your job. I don't think that the 49ers loss is as crazy and as significant as the Eagles loss. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Cowboys fan. Okay. So the 49ers lost, they had an off game. They were in Cleveland, right? You get the Eagles. And I think the Eagles, so I would not say the 49ers were exposed. I would say the Eagles were exposed for what their weaknesses truly are. And by their weaknesses, I mean Jalen Hurts' weaknesses. Because Jalen Hurts, when he's pressured more than 40% of the time, is 3-7 in those games. So I think the blueprint's coming out that you put pressure on Jalen Hurts and he doesn't make the right decisions. He had 3 interceptions in that game.
You force him to pass, and I think that causes you. I mean, the formula for winning thus far in the season has been ground and pound, taking those stupid 10-minute long drives where they're just running 75 yards down the field. And they forced Jalen Hurts to make plays, and he did not. 3 interceptions, which, if you can remember, last week, Dak also had 3 interceptions, but, that gets swept under the rug. Not trying to say Dak is like the greatest quarterback in the world, but let's knock Jalen Hurts down a few pegs, can we?
Yeah, I've been noticing, obviously, with the Eagles' loss to a terrible Jets offense, by the way. Their defense swallowed up the run game. They took away his run and the running backs and left him to throw. And A.J. Brown went off, but nobody else really helped Jalen out. And Jalen didn't help himself out. I think the Eagles were exposed, and obviously no one's going to talk about it, and that's fine. But we're going to talk about it because the Eagles get a little bit too much hype. And the problem is their offense, without Shane Steichen, their offensive coordinator, has looked not great. Their defense is really good. Their defense does what it does with those guys up front that they have, but their offense is not looking amazing. Like I said, the 49ers, they had an off game. You could just tell, like, that's not what they are. I mean, you saw what they did to Dallas. Like, it's the 49ers are a really good football team. There's really not much you can beat up the 49ers for. But the Eagles, they have looked this way all season, and the Jets finally were able to cap it off with the win. But, I mean, they've had some close games that should have been lost, in my opinion, and I think we play them here in a couple weeks, and I'm ready for that.
Mm-hmm. There's no excuse, in my opinion, for losing to a team led by Zach Wilson. That's inexcusable in my mind. I mean, he is one of the worst quarterbacks that we've seen before. It's a wonder why he is still in the league. The only reason, in my opinion, he's still in the league is because he was drafted so high. I think if he was like a 4th-round pick or something like that, he's a backup or something like that. But there's no excuse for losing to Zach Wilson. I mean, all the weapons you have on offense and how good your offensive line is, you should be able to handle the Jets. Obviously, I understand that the Jets have one of the best defenses in the league, but that offense is just so horrible because of Zach Wilson.
I agree. Those were the 2 big losses for those 2 teams that everybody's kind of loved watching so far. I think a team that needs to be mentioned, Lions. They are actually like quietly kind of winning a lot of football games. And they've only lost 1, and it was in overtime. But other than that, Jared Goff in that offense is looking really good. Against the Buccaneers defense that's averaging 2.5 takeaways per game, they had 0 this week. And their defense looks great as well. Like, the Bucs are a good football team, and the Lions won 20-6. They silenced the Bucs this week.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions are definitely one of the best teams in football right now, but nobody's really talking about them. And I'm loving it because I love Dan Campbell. And
they're just creeping up on everybody. No one's talking about them. There are no more undefeated teams, so they fall into the 1-loss category. So good for them. Another team that had, I'd say, a bounce back week was the Rams. You saw the return of Cooper Kupp, and I mean, he does what you expect of him. He does what he's supposed to do. He had 7 catches for 148 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, he's just doing Cooper Kupp things. Yeah, they beat the Cardinals. Cardinals aren't a very good team, but it's nice to see that the Rams are getting back on their feet with their number one receiver getting back into action.
All right, last game we're going to talk about. Let's talk about the big one, the Monday Night Football game. Cowboys Chargers, close game. Not super clean, but Cowboys came away with the win. It was a nail biter at the end, and in the end, the defense came up big. Micah Parsons came up big with a sack on second down, and then obviously Justin Herbert throws a pick to end the game to Stephon Gilmore. And I got to say, I think this is more about, and I'm a huge Cowboys fan, obviously. This is more about the Chargers than the Cowboys. The Chargers are, I don't think the Chargers, Brandon Staley is going to keep his job in LA for that much longer. But also, I just want to talk about Herbert. I know everyone loves Herbert, and he's got a lot of talent, but there's been multiple times this season and last season, in a last 2 minute drive to try to win the game, he's thrown a pick. So we've seen it time and time again, and people are always shocked when it happens to him. But I'm not seeing it. He's just not, the decision making's not there.
We've seen it multiple times. I was going to say, this is not the first time that's happened to him before. I want to say last year, was it like, I remember he did that against
San Francisco
and Kansas City. Kansas City was that big one. Mm-hmm. And it's just super frustrating. Also, at the end of the game, he misses Keenan Allen wide open.
Yep.
And that essentially killed the drive for them. Also, let's just take a moment to appreciate how efficient Dak was with the ball in his hand.
Oh, yeah.
21 for 30 with 272 yards. But here's the crazy thing, all right? He targeted CeeDee Lamb 7 times. That was 7 catches for CeeDee. Targeted Brandon Cooks 4 times. That was 4 catches for Brandon Cooks. But then the big one where basically all of the incompletions came was to Michael Gallup, where he got targeted 10 times, catching 3 passes. So he's ultimately what was killing Dak's statistics.
Dak loves Michael Gallup, and Michael Gallup's good, but he couldn't get any separation last night. I guess he was trying, but he wasn't getting any. CeeDee showed up big, though. CeeDee's the number 1 receiver, and he did what he was supposed to do. And Brandon Cooks, he even had like 14 rushing yards. Like, he was looking really good last night.
I was going to say, it was nice to see him come alive, finally get that first touchdown of the season. I've seen him at 34 yards, but he got a clutch touchdown when we needed it from him. And then we ran him on a little jet sweep where he picked up 14 yards. So it is nice to see us finally utilizing Brandon Cooks, because he's too good of a guy to not get as many touches as he hasn't been getting. And then also,
I think that we're seeing, we saw improvement offensively for sure this week from San Francisco, which is what we needed to see. And what Dak said in his press conference was like, we had to win this week just to get some momentum swinging our direction. We saw Dak use his legs, and that's something we haven't really seen this season. He had 45 rushing yards last night. He had 40 before in the last 5 games total. So he led the league, not the league. He led the team in rushing last night. That's not great. You want your running back to do that. But I think Dak, we need him to use his legs. So that was,
he just saw what needed to be done and did it. And we needed him to run in a couple. He ran in a touchdown, which was pretty electric, because we haven't seen that from Dak in a while.
It seemed like he was playing more free last night. That's what it looked like.
Yeah. And also the other thing is, in all of his games following a loss, his passer rating has exceeded 100. So I don't think there's any other QB in the league that bounces back like Dak does. So that's good to see. But then also the big thing was CeeDee getting 117 yards. We've seen him kind of go up and down this year. Last week he did not have a great week, but I think in order for success, you're going to have 80 plus yards, 100 yards or whatever a game, because he's our best weapon that we have. So we have to be utilizing him to his maximum potential.
Agreed. Pollard helped out in the receiving game. I think all around it was a good game. The only messy part about it for the Cowboys was the penalties, and we got to clean up the penalties. But it's week 6, so we're going to continue fixing our game. Hopefully with Mike McCarthy. Hopefully we're trending upwards, and maybe the loss to San Francisco was something we needed to see what we needed to work on. So good game for Dallas. Good to get that win.
Good bounce back week. Just glad to see it. So here's where I like to end our shows on Under Review. I brought you a quote from the Greg Dortch, and he said that good things come to those who work, and that's the truth.
Amen. Amen. Thank y'all for tuning in this week. We will see y'all next week with Nick back here in the 143 for another episode of Under Review.